a War Machine and Hordes podcast focused on EU meta, tournaments, and tactics. My name is Tomasz, and I play Circle.
I'm Simon, and I currently play Legion.
Today we are going to talk about the Barcelona Masters in Spain. Then we'll discuss Infernals CID and Simon's experience so far. And then we are going to do a spring schedule for tournaments in Europe.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this one. Some good topics. But as you say, we'll start with the Barcelona Masters. So, once again, stuff that people have asked us for is definitely concerned with list building, list preparation, and sort of tournament preparation in general. How do top players go into a big tournament, and what are their thoughts? We spoke a little bit with Pat about it last time, but because you weren't involved in that tournament, we didn't necessarily get around to your list preparation and how you approach it. So I thought it's a good idea to sort of get back to that here. So you went to the Barcelona Masters, and of course you took Circle. What was the pairing that you ended up taking? Let's start with the final result. What did you take in the end?
It was Iona in the Versus and Wormwood in Bones of Ouroboros.
Okay, and was anything a little bit outside of the norm? Was the Iona list the usual double Ravagers? What was your battle group? Was it double Wolves or a Storm Raptor? Or?
Yeah, my battle group was Feral and a Stalker.
Okay. And the Crockpot and all the usual stuff. Nothing too surprising.
Yep.
And the Wormwood Bones was anything surprising there? Anything unusual?
There were Gobber River Riders and a Crockpot.
Gobber what?
Gobber River Riders.
I haven't got the first idea what those are.
Yeah. So were my opponents.
So what do they do?
When someone asks me what they do, I usually introduce them as Little Lord of the Fists.
Oh, Jesus.
They have a roll and dual attack, so they can charge something, shoot something else, and then place base to base with it. So kind of like Lords of the Fist. But the truth is, they are not there to do any work.
They're there for souls, right?
They are there for souls on scenarios that don't have flags, and on scenarios with flags, they are to put on a flag and not lose a key piece from my list, like a Black Stone Shaper or Wayfarer.
So wait, they're solos?
Yes, they fill a single solo slot. For 4 points, you get 3 of them.
Wow, that's kind of cool. All right. Yeah. That's value. Do they only work for Circle, or do they work for a few factions?
I'm not really sure.
Okay.
Those are mercenaries. They might work for Legion and Scorn. You would need to check. Those are gobbers, so
they probably work for Legion as well, all right? Yeah. I'll have to have a look at that. That sounds cool. All right. So, going back to the preparation stage then. I know that we've spoken about it off stream, but let's talk about it a little bit on the cast. So, how did you arrive at that pairing? Was that pairing sort of... I imagine, given that Iona is sort of such a strong list, that it was basically, right, I'm playing Iona, now what do I pair with Iona? Is that true? Is that the case?
Yeah, it kind of is. I was watching Iona during CID, and I was in a dojo group with people who were testing her extensively for War Machine Weekend, one of who was Brett Fogel, who won the War Machine Weekend. So I knew that I'm going to play her from the day she's released. It was just a matter of finding an optimal list for her. And then about the pairing, the common opinion would be that she's going to be paired with Kruger too. And while I think that's a very strong pairing, at the time I was pairing Kruger 2 with Wormwood. And I was very happy with Wormwood because we saw increase of huge bases in the meta, so stranglehold value went up. Also, around the time that Circle CID dropped, Crucible Guard got all their releases, so I knew that there's going to be increase of Crucible Guard in the meta, so I decided on Wormwood, not Kruger 2.
Okay.
So I was playing this pairing, I took it to various tournaments and had good success with it, so I was really happy with how it works. Meanwhile, Scorn CID was first announced and later released, but that didn't get me worried because Scorn isn't really popular in Europe. But the more time passed, the more we saw opinion about how Scorn is good into Circle, and it started to be more and more popular. So that got me worried, and I was really hesitant about my pairing for this tournament.
Okay. And what was it? Because, when we say... because I'm going to go back to, you said that people on the internet, at least, were worried about Scorn. Were they worried about the Exalted, or were they worried about Fatty, or were they worried about... Makeda 3 with her, or what was it that they were concerned about that they didn't think that Tharn could handle?
I think it is the pairing Makeda Free and Exalted as a whole. Exalted being strong into control, they are immune to pushes and places, and they have Arcane Vortex, so that's really bad. And into Farns, you don't get corpses from them, so it's hard to Pac-Man through the infantry and trade efficiently, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And Makeda Free is just... She can Pac-Man through your whole army if you're not paying attention, if you don't space correctly. So skill in that matchup is required.
And the theory was that Wormwood could be better into Makeda 3. Also, I've missed how the pairing deals with that pairing.
Oh, it obviously depends on the list composition, theme force, terrain, scenario, etc. But I think that Scorn player is not comfortable dropping Makeda Free into Wormwood, and you are not comfortable dropping Wormwood into Exalted, so what you end up seeing is Exalted versus Iona.
Okay. And when you heard about this, so you heard that Scorn, potentially, this Exalted Tharn could be bad. What did you I assume you went into the think tank a little bit, had a look at Circle and had a look what you could provide, and what did you find that you felt might be better into Exalted? What were some changes that you considered making, even if you didn't?
So I had few candidates, one of which was Boulder 1 in Devourer's Host with the Storm Raptor. And I spoke to Robin Anderson about it, and he suggested me that list as well. He has some experience into Exalted, and it was good so far. Mm-hmm. So at first glance, you are looking at Exalted, and they can ignore your feat going incorporeal. But then when you look closely, only Immortals can do it.
Yep.
Because Supreme Guardian and Solos cannot go incorporeal unless it's Morgul 2. Another candidate was Bradigus. I was playing him a lot paired with Kruger, and he used to be my Scorn drop. He could handle Reshev, and I've played him many times into Zal 1 and Zal 2, and both of those games I was comfortable with. Of course, Scorn got updated, they got Supreme Guardian, and they got some new roles and solos, but I expected it to still be good. It just got me a bit worried about some dedicated gun lines.
So you don't feel like Bradigus can handle dedicated gun lines, and you definitely don't feel like Tharn can?
I mean, it depends on the gun lines.
Sure.
Bradigus is such an arm skew that he handles some of them, but some might be problematic.
Yeah, some can get through.
Iona also can play into gun lines because she's fast, she has Hunter's Mark, Vengeance, and there's a spell called Phantasm, which I've heard is really good into gun lines. So.
Yeah, sure foot, also not bad if they don't have Blessed. Yeah. All right. No, or Blessed even, Jesus.
Yeah, so I was changing my lists a lot. Like before the list submission, I went full crazy and I was changing like 3 or 4 times a day, so in panic. So that was funny, especially that Spanish players wrote me that they expect to see Italians, including their Italian champion who's currently playing Scorn. So I was really hesitant. But in the end, I just asked a totally neutral person about that advice. Should I take something for Scorn, or should I just take something that I know well and have a lot of experience with? So the advice was to take something that I know well and have experience with, so I did that.
So based on experience, basically, like you've got a lot of reps.
Yeah, so I decided on the pairing, so now the biggest struggle with Iona list was how to compose the battle group. And there's no one way to do it. Different people prefer different options, most popular being Getterix Stalker, Stalker and Stalker, Feral and Stalker, or Narhorn Satyr and Stalker.
And Raptor, right? I mean, there are some Iona Raptor, yeah.
Yeah. So I think I've tried all the combinations, and to start with, I didn't like Stalker just because both War Beasts are mat 6 and they really want to sprint back, so if you miss an attack, that might be difficult. So then Getterix, I really liked Getterix there. The only problem was that I couldn't fit Gallows Growth in my list, and I feel like Gallows Growth in current meta is kinda essential. You really want Entropic Force, and if you don't, you can just use it as Blood Sacrifice target to get Divine Inspiration on Lord of the Fist or a Ravager.
Sure.
Or you can use it to put a Hunter's Mark or Pursuit somewhere where Iona cannot reach.
Yeah.
The next thing would be Narhorn and Stalker, and I like that version, but it also brings 2 heavies with mat 6, so that's a problem.
Sure.
And Feral and a Stalker is my favorite combination, because Feral can primal a Stalker, And then Stalker can reliably kill a heavy and sprint back, or maybe even kill a colossal because he goes up to mat 8, power strength 21.
Just run me through 21. So it's 17 base, primal to 19, and warp strength for 21, yeah? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so I like having primal because when I go into a heavy target and I have, let's say, 50-50 to kill it, I prefer to just primal it and frenzy next turn than maybe leave in a few boxes or spend my last attack and trade my Stalker.
Do you not find it a tiny bit, like a little bit counter synergy to have like this cool go in, kill something, sprint back, and then frenzy? Like...
Yeah, I see this argument a lot, and I can't understand it, but I still prefer to frenzy next turn, but put my Warp Wolf when I want it to and position it how I want it to, than just stay there and die.
Yeah, you know what it's going to frenzy on. You set the frenzy up.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just staying there for longer, so Iona has access to sprint for longer. And yeah, and you can position it to contest the flag, contest the zone, however you like it to. So while that's a bit counter-synergistic, it makes planning more reliable and has some advantages.
Okay. And how about the Wormwood? Because you explained a little bit about how the Iona list was created, and that all makes sense to me. But the Wormwood, you've put in some minion unit that I've never even heard of. Why isn't that well known? Why aren't other people doing that? Or is that something you think people are likely to follow? Or how was that built?
Yeah, they might, and I got a lot of questions of did I put the crockpot by accident to Bones list?
Yeah, you're just so automatically putting crockpots in list, you just threw one in. Yeah, okay. So what was the real reason for the crockpot?
So the reason behind both of those choices was my game against Patrick and his Silvestro on Spread the Net at Conquest. During this game, I've realized that even though Vulcan was stranglehold every turn, at some point he could just move towards my army and I couldn't do anything about it because I've sent my Stone Shapers on flag and they flagged to score points and they died, and then I lose my strength bonus to kill the Colossal, and also I lose my Fury management. So I realized that I cannot really afford that, and Gallows Grows weren't really a good solo for flags. They are not mobile and they move 5 inches a turn. They are kind of squishy and you want them for something else. So I found this solo slot where you pay 4 points, you get free solos, which fixes the whole issue. And on scenarios without flags, you can just use them as souls to start your second turn with more Fury, or whenever you like it to. And the Crockpot works with that because Crockpot takes a unit slot and you get a Puppet Master, which makes Wormwood very Fury efficient. You don't need to boost your Hellmouths that needs 4 or 5 anymore. And when you fail a Stranglehold, you can reroll that instead of casting another one. So that's cool.
And do you get any corpse? Is there any use for the corpse element of the Crockpot in that list?
Yeah, I was thinking about it, and you might steal some corpse if you're playing against Grimkins, because who's closer to the corpse takes it, but it's really
that's pretty corner case, right? So there's no real use for the corpse part, it's just the other part, right? Fair enough.
Yeah, you use the corpse to boost the Spectral Lash and to boost to hit and damage, so that's something. And sure. You can boost Puppet Master if you use it offensively.
Do you ever use Puppet Master offensively? I never do it.
I think I never did, but I want to do it one day.
I would love to, but I mean, I just never actually find myself doing it. Yeah. All right, cool. Let's move on to the actual tournament itself then. So you went to Barcelona. How did you hear about it? Were you invited, or what was the deal with that?
Yeah, so a good buddy of mine, Manel from Spanish WTC team and a fellow Circle player, wrote me a few times if I'm going there, but I couldn't because the same day we had a Polish team tournament. And then after the Polish team tournament, I got a message from the organizer, Mark, who asked me if I'm coming. And I was like, yeah, but this tournament already happened. And I've realized that because February has 28 days, it was just the same date, but different month.
In February?
Yeah. So I could go there. And he also offered some help. He offered an incredible discount on miniatures from his store and some other options to help foreigners get there. So I couldn't say no. I bought my plane tickets and went there.
All right. They gave you a little bit of incentive to get over there and try to support the international scene. Well, that's great. I'm happy to hear that. I hope.
Yeah, exactly.
I hope they sort of keep that up.
Yeah, and when I arrived there, they were so hospitable, so warm, willing to help, so friendly. I couldn't believe myself. Like, it was awesome, like completely awesome people. And the tournament itself was happening in Infernal Forge, which is Mark's store. And I believe it's the main distributor for War Machine and Hordes for Spain and Italy. And I've never seen such a huge stock of War Machine models in my life. Like, everything was there, even things that you would that are normally out of stock in many places, like a crockpot. So that was awesome.
They had a great stock. That's cool.
Yeah, and Barcelona is a beautiful city. So it was the first time I could take my girlfriend to a War Machine and Horse tournament, and she enjoyed that. We went there a day before the tournament, so we could do some sightseeing, visit some Gaudi architecture, see the sea, and stuff like that.
So what I think you're saying is that you went outside.
Yeah.
Weirdo. What are you doing? That's not how this works, man. You've misunderstood. We go to beautiful cities so that we can find a cellar somewhere and then go underground and play games.
Yeah, I think it was the first time that I actually went outside during the tournament.
And what was how was the, back to the nerd style, what was the organisation of the tournament itself? Was it a 2-day, 5-round, or what was the deal?
Yeah, 2 days and 5 or 6 rounds, depending on the pair downs.
Oh, okay. And how many players, was that because of an uneven player number, or how many did you have in the end?
I think we had 40 players, I want to say.
Okay, so it was like 32 plus a few, and then you'll see whether you end up with a pair down or not. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Sweet. Cool. And was there any prize support? You mentioned there was a lot of models available in the store and so on, but were some of those given for prize support, or was it sort of not that style?
Prize support was incredible. Like, it's not only the quantity, but also the quality of the prizes. So there were free army boxes, a lot of boosts. There was the limited Haley statue, some plushes, some painting sets, a lot of trophies, medals, like just a lot of stuff.
Cool. All right. And what was the you mentioned? Or rather, you didn't mention a painting prize. Was there painting support or a painting requirement, or what was the painting situation for that one?
There was no painting requirement.
Great.
But there was, but there was a painting competition. You just needed to leave your army on the table after day 1 if you want to participate. And winner got like some paint sets, some brushes, and I think Borka Bust was the first prize. So.
All right, for the painting stuff. Great. And do you remember which faction was the winner of the painting stuff, or did you not catch it?
I remember a person, but I don't remember what faction he was playing.
Okay.
So.
Okay. No worries. All right, let's move on. So next section, the battle reports. So let's hear about it round by round. You said 5 rounds in the end?
Yes.
Perfect. Was it following scenario 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or were they switching around a bit?
I think they were switching around a bit because second round was spread the net.
Okay, so they were switching.
In the scenario packet, it's the third scenario.
Yeah. All right. So then, in which case, I will ask each time. So, round 1. Who was your opponent? What were they playing? And how did the pairings work out?
So round 1, I got Miguel Delgado. Sorry if I butchered that name. We are playing the Pit 2, and I got minions. So I was happy to get.
Always happy to get minions. It's like, oh, minions.
Yeah.
Right.
And
okay.
It was Rask and Mailok, and what was interesting about the Mailok list, there were frogs and ambushers, max ambushers and max frogs. So I've never seen that in Mailok list.
No, mate.
Table has quite a big forest, so I'm happy about that.
Yeah.
And so I approached table. I say that I play Iona. What do you play? He picked Mailok. I won. I think I won the roll-off. I don't remember. But yeah, I run forward. He runs forward. He does some things like in the second round, he ambushes ambushers just to jam me up. But, farms are not really jammable. I just used my mini fit and a single Ravager killed the whole unit of ambushers and started moving towards the frogs. I killed some frogs. And so when I did my alpha, there was not much stuff left on the table, and I was ahead in scenario. So the game ended up on 4th round just by attrition.
Okay. And my usual question, what did Feast kill?
I remember. So he went first, and he ran his army forwards, and he forgot about Lord of the Feast. So bottom of 1, I've killed like 3 crocodiles, and a soul slave guy.
Okay.
And I've crippled a wrestler's spirit to a box.
All right, good stuff. So Iona, Feast, goodness, and minions, and poor guy. Next round. Round 2. What was the scenario, and who was the opponent?
So round 2, it's spread the net. I get Signar. I approach the table, and I see 2 giant forests. And I measure the distance between those forests. I'm looking at my opponent, and I'm like, Alfonso, those forests are 4 inches apart. So I need you to look at it and confirm that they are, because they might move during the game, and this is kind of important.
Yeah.
So I kind of gave him an idea what I'm dropping. It's Haley 3 and Siege 1, I want to say, but maybe it could be Siege 2. I was playing Haley 3 anyway.
Yeah.
And I've picked Wormwood. Like, I think with such a table, I could play both lists, but just for the reason that I have 2 giant forests 4 inches apart that I can connect with rapid growth, which means I almost get fit turn every turn.
Yeah.
I just can't not drop Wormwood.
No, so, that's pretty disgusting. All right. Yeah.
Yeah, he has +1 to go first, and of course he loses the roll, and I go first just because he has +1. So the stars were right. I move forward, and he moves forward. In my second turn, I kill a lot of models. I fuel up Wormwood on souls, then connect those 2 forests. So in his second round, he put some scenario pressure. He jumped me a lot. He moved a lot of stuff towards my army. He has commandos, so they are stealth, which kind of was a bit trouble because he engaged my Waldwards, so I couldn't aim, and I had a hard time to get within 5 inches of those commandos, and they were tough, so a few of them passed the tough checks. So I didn't kill enough models. I've killed a lot of models, but I wasn't satisfied with the outcome of this turn, so I just used my feet to protect my army. And I believe I scored 3 points, and this was the moment when he realized why I've put those gobbers to the list, because when he asked me, I just said, yeah, those are little Lord of the Fists. So he started measuring their threat range, which I found like interesting because they were not there to do any work. And when I put one on the flag, he realized he cannot reliably trade for it. Like, I put 1 point solo on a flag, and he needs to send something to kill it. The flag was on a hill, so he needed like 2 or 3 trenchers and a good rolls to kill the gobber, and he needs to send like valuable solo on the flag to score it. And then next turn, I just clear the flag and send another gobber, which is like no value. You cannot trade for it. So he got a bit frustrated with those, and I was really happy about them, that the Fury I've put them in works.
Yeah, they performed.
Yeah. So the game was a grind. It went down to 5th turn, I believe, or 6th, when he was left with only the character Warjack, Haley character Warjack, the Arknote. Thorn, yeah. He had Thorn, like 2 trenchers, and all Haleys. And I I want to say I lost only Mega Life during that game.
Okay.
Yeah, so he tried an assassination that didn't work, and we shake hands. So game was very nice, but just the table gave me so big advantage that it was unlosable for me.
When you've got a wormwood feat every turn, that's pretty tasty. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So that was versus Alfonso Villar, right? Okay. So I was just looking at the notes. So round 3, you're on Recon 2 this time against Raul Sanga. Which faction was he playing?
He was playing minions, and
Hey! Woo!
that
Go
was
minions!
my reaction too. Also, Sanga is one of the nicest players you can play against. He's the captain of WTC team.
Okay.
And he was so nice, so like relaxed during the game. You could see that he's having fun with the game and he enjoys the game.
And we mean it's the Spanish WTC team, right?
Yeah, Spanish
Okay.
WTC.
Cool.
And he had minions that were converted in. They were looking great. Like almost every crocodile had a hat. So yeah, that was like country style Maylock list.
Fantastic. All right.
So he picked Maylock, and it was Maylock with Dracodile this time, and a lot of mini units of Posse.
Okay.
We are playing Recon 2. The table has no forest, unfortunately, a big building. I think he won the role to go first.
You took Iona, right?
Yeah, I took Iona.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember who went first, but basically how the game went is I run forward, he runs forward, and then he don't know what to do in his second round because he cannot. Whole zones are threatened, and he cannot leave the scenario open. So he needs to leave Dracodile in a zone.
Mm-hmm.
Then he floods the second zone with Posse. So Iona fits. I go in. I leave Iona in the middle of the table behind the building, like with 2 transfers. Very ballsy play on her side. And I go in to kill the Dracodile, and I don't kill the Dracodile. I think I don't really do much work that turn. I kinda damage every crocodile. I removed an aspect from the Dracodile, but he was left with, I want to say, like 15 or something boxes. So
okay, so he wasn't so close to dead or anything. Yeah.
Yeah, I ambushed my weavers. They killed this jumping guy that looks like a predator. Don't remember his name. Totem Hunter. Yeah.
Totem Hunter. Yeah, the solo. Yeah.
Yeah. So I didn't do much work, which was the first time I saw Iona not doing much, but I damaged almost everything. So like there were a lot of crocodiles on one box and stuff like that. So in return, he started measuring assassination. It took him like 15 minutes, but in the end, he decided it's off the table. I, of course, had White Mane waiting for it. So his turn, he also don't do any work. Like he goes in, he does all his attacks. I think he missed half of his attacks, and the second half he actually hit. I tough. So I've made like 10 tough checks out of 11 that turn.
Oh.
Which was, really, really sad. And he missed a lot of attacks. So I dodged away with some Ravagers. And the next turn, even without defeat, I could clean everything up, kill the Dracodile, and kill all the Posse that were in my way. So I cleaned the table. And I scored a lot of points and I win on scenario.
God, 10 out of 11 toughs just brought back memories of Krakow.
Yeah, that was insane. At some point, he was just laughing like, yeah, do another tough. Oh, tough. Yeah. Okay, so tough. Oh, you're tough. Yeah, of course.
Great. Good for you.
Yeah,
Fair enough.
But it was one of the funniest games I had in War Machine ever. So I strongly recommend to games against Sanga if you have chance.
Perfect. I hope we meet them at the WTC. That sounds great. So you're now 3-0. How many players around? Is it already confirmed at this point that you're going to be on 5 rounds, or is it still up in the air?
It's still up, and what's interesting is there are 5 players with 3-0.
Okay.
And those are 4 circle players and 1 scorn.
Yeah. Interesting,
And I believe there were 3... Oh, maybe there was a Crucible Guard player as well, but I'm not sure. No, there was not. So 4 circle and 1 scorn, and 3 Italian players, me and 1 Spanish player.
Oh, so the Spanish guy had a lot of pressure on him to sort of perform in his international tournament. All right. So who did you meet? Did you meet the Spaniard or did you meet one of the Italians?
So remember when I said that I wanted to prepare for Scorn because people say it's a bad matchup for Circle and stuff like that, and then I got the information that there's going to be a strong Scorn player from Italy.
Oh yeah. So you got him?
Yeah, then I kind of said to myself, like, what are the odds that I'm going to meet him in a tournament? And boom, I get Scorn player. It's Daniele Diaspro, the current Italian master. And he's playing Morgul 2 and what was his second list? Makeda 3.
And Morgul 2 was Exalted or Masters of War? Or?
It's Exalted and Makeda 3 was in Imperial Warhost.
Okay.
I believe he didn't play Makeda in the whole tournament. He was just dropping Morgul every turn. And this game was very interesting. So we had a chat with Daniele the day before, and he told me that he's a very quick player. He never clocked himself with Scorn, and he usually makes his decision very quick, and he plays his Supreme Guardian very conservatively to arrive to the late game, because I was asking him for some advice into Scorn and how he plays them. So we are playing Invasion. He chooses Morgul 2, I choose Iona. His list is Agonizer, Archidon, Titan with Countercharge, 3 units of Immortals, Supreme Guardian, and some support.
Okay.
I win the roll to go first. I decide to go first. So he puts me on a side with a water in the left side and a burning cloud on the right side. And he chooses the side with a trench on the right side and a hill on the left side. In the middle, we have a giant forest, which is good. So I deployed kind of symmetrically. I pray his Archidon. I run my army forwards. So in his turn, which I find very interesting, all Immortals run forward, but Supreme Guardian and his battle group move backwards.
And was that just, was there a threat range that he was avoiding? Was that just to avoid Feast, or?
No, I think it was like a standard thing, like something he practiced, the layering of his army, and it matches what he said about being very conservative with Supreme Guardian. If you move him backwards, you're outside of threat ranges for 100%.
Sure, but it seems odd to move backwards when you could just stay still if you're not in the threat range of anything. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, maybe. I think Daniela had a good reason for it, but I cannot really say for him what it was. So my first turn was a bit quicker than his. Then I see that I'm not threatened and zones are not threatened. So my second turn is just a quick reshuffle. It took me like 2 minutes, which at this point I was like 55 minutes after second turn, and there's no scenario pressure at all. So Daniela took his turn, and what he did in his turn, he needed to measure some threat ranges from Lord of the Feast and from my Ravagers, and he puts 4 Immortals into my left zone and a Titan behind them. He puts 4 in the middle zone and 2 in my right zone. So I need to trigger Vengeance if I want to score any zone. And they are mixed up, so I probably need to trigger 2 Vengeance for a single zone. So going into my third turn, I've did a lot of precise measurements. I've measured the left zone if I can kill 4 Immortals with a single Ravager with the Pac-Man. And I've realized after some time that I cannot get to the last one, so I need to commit 2 Ravagers.
Okay.
Then I need to measure if I can position the rest of the Ravagers in the zone so I can score it, but outside of his threat ranges, including Vengeance. So I see that I can do that. So I move to my right zone, And in my right zone, there are 2 immortals. So I can send 1 Ravager, but I cannot position the rest so they are in the zone and outside of threat range. There's like 4-inch diameter in a zone which is safe. So after a while, I decided I will ambush Bloodweavers just to be a backup plan if this single Ravager won't kill the Immortal, and they can run to this 4-inch diameter in a zone and stay safe of his threat ranges, and I will position Ravagers behind them.
Right, okay.
So then there's middle zone, and because it's my first time playing into Morgul 2, I decided to be a bit more cagey than I would usually be and not to go for the middle zone.
Yep.
Which in hindsight was a mistake, because I could kill objective and those 4 immortals easily. I would use my feat to do that, and the staying power with feat is very strong, so I would probably win this game at this point, because it would be impossible for Daniela to clear a zone, and then in return I would need to clear a single one. So
yeah.
So I start with the left zone. I start with shot from Breed, so I don't need to commit 2 Ravagers, just 1.
Yep.
She misses, so I commit 2 Ravagers. One is doing his Pac-Man thing, and after the first Pac-Man, he's like, counter charge. And I'm like, oh no. And we measured the counter charge, and I'm like a hair outside of it. So I was lucky there. And I could continue my Pac-Man, including his counter charge range.
You were aware of it, yeah.
So that was good. I cleared that zone, stayed outside of threat ranges as planned. I send Ravager in the right zone. He kills both of Immortals, so all the Bloodweavers can run to the spot I've described and stay safe. And in the middle zone, I just reshuffle.
So you scored 2. So you stayed back and scored 2. It sounds like you did a lot of measurement. That was a very, very technical turn, and that it must have taken quite a bit of your clock. So you originally said you had a few minute clock advantage. I imagine that by this stage, you now had a slight clock disadvantage?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say.
But you're 2 points up.
Yes, so in his turn, he starts by Vengeance, then he charges with Morgul, he blinds the whole left flank, and he positions aggressively there. In the right zone, he charges the Ravager that I've gave him, and he also positions very aggressively there to start trading game. Supreme Gentleman is more aggressive now, moving a bit towards, and he puts an Archidon to a zone, to the right zone, to have some more bodies there. So he didn't score a point, and it's still 2-0 for me. And at this stage, it's kind of decided that he's going to take my left side, and I'm taking the right side. So what I do in my turn is I move the whole unit of Ravagers backwards to maybe stay alive, and I leave only 1 in the zone to trigger, so he needs to trigger Vengeance. In the middle zone, I reshuffle. In the right zone, I fit, and I go in to kill some Immortals and an Archidon, but some unlucky rolls and lucky rolls on his side with tough checks means that 1 Immortal is there alive, and I'm not scoring a zone. So after this turn, it's 2-0. And it's probably worth to mention that I kept Lord of the Fist very safe the entire game. I needed him to give me some time, so he needs to measure his threat ranges and stuff, and that makes the clock game even, because I lost a lot of time during my third turn. So after that, the game becomes like back and forth. We all score single points, so I have 2 points advantage over him. And his late game is a lot better than mine. Like, I'm trading Ravagers for Immortals, those Immortals come back. I'm running out of things to contest his zone, so that becomes a problem. And when we arrive to the 6th turn, he has 2 minutes to my 1 minute, so I kinda gave up at this point, but I stayed focused to see what's going on the table and maybe find out from it. And in his 6th turn, he started doing so many attacks that some of them weren't really, I think, necessary. So he has like 20 or 30 seconds, and he charges my Warpwolf to kill it, which wouldn't score him a point. So that was just an attrition move. So at this point, I have no battle group, and it's 4 seconds to my 1 minute. So what I do is I just contest his zone with the Gallows Grove.
What's the score at this point?
I'm 2 points ahead.
2 points ahead, and he's got 4 seconds left.
Yeah. So then I pause the clock and I ask him if there is a point of playing this game, and he's like, "Yeah, I can kill the Gallows Grove, but then you'll be still 1 point ahead." And Iona is camping 7, and I'm like, "Yeah, she's camping 7, but I have no transfer targets, so that doesn't matter." And he's like, "Oh, wait." So I'm like, "At this point, I need to start your clock." I started his clock, and he tried to kill Iona with Supreme Guardian Charge.
In 4 seconds?
Yeah, with 4 seconds. But unfortunately, he had no time to move the model, so he almost killed her. Like, I could move her to a side, but I decided it's only 4 seconds, so he's not going to do it.
He simply can't roll the dice that fast. Like,
yeah, but he almost did.
So you had a bit of a squeaky bum moment.
The ending was very exciting. So it was a win after 7 turns with 1 point advantage. Surviving the assassination, he managed to roll dices that quick. He rolled like all the 6s. I think the damage roll was 665 with size importance. But he didn't move the model, so...
Right, okay. It was just didn't have the time to actually like properly do the action, do the activation.
Yeah, like measure it, move the model, and stuff like that. But
right.
I think with if he had more time, he would do the assassination. I would die, but at the same time, if he had more time, I would just run Iona to the edge of the table and stay safe.
Yeah, you just run it to the kill box, don't you? Like, there's no reason to do anything else. All right, cool.
Maybe not to the kill box, maybe.
No, I mean like to the edge of the kill box, not into it. You said edge of the table. I was like, don't do that.
I think I would run to the right side because
okay.
Measuring the kill box could clock me, and I had also few seconds at this point. So
just run hard left or hard right or whatever. Yeah. Fair enough. So that was round 4. It almost sounded like the finals, but it wasn't. So
that's exactly what we talked about with Daniele after the game. Like he said, and I agree. It could be a finals. It was so close, so good game. So I imagine it was so good to watch. We had a lot of spectators. So.
Cool.
Yeah, very exciting.
Excellent. And so the actual finals, from the notes here, I see that it was on Mirage, and it was against Francesco. I'm sorry, I've probably murdered that. Francesco Zap,
yeah.
Okay.
Zappellini. So Francesco sent me his list before, 2 weeks before the tournament. It was Kruger 2 with Stormraptor, and he said he's building that for Mirror, and if it's good. So I look at this list, and I'm like, yeah, that's a very good list into Mirror. That should crush most of the turn lists, I think.
Okay.
So when I was doing the list preparation for the event, I completely forgot he sent me this list. And then during the event, I was like, whoops. I even knew ahead that he has this list, right? He sent it to me. He asked me about the Mirror, and now I'm going to play Mirror against that. So I'm like, please God, let it be Mirage, and it's Mirage. So that's good. He chose Kruger, of course. I chose Iona because it's Mirage, and we started playing the game. I think I won the roll-off, but I'm not sure that wasn't important. Like, I run forward, he runs forward, he kills my stuff with Stormraptor, and I score points, basically. This is the whole game. So we quickly realize that because he cannot go really deep in the scenario, I score points a lot easier, and I have a lot more models to contest zones.
Right.
And yeah, but because he has Stormraptor, attrition is looking in his favor, but he cannot really keep with me scoring so many points. So at some point, he's running low on clock. I still have 40 minutes. I'm up on scenario by 3 points or something like that. And I decided to use my feet and decided to put Iona in a risky spot, kind of to force him to try an assassination. I know Kruger, I've played Kruger, so I know the assassination is always on the table.
Yep.
So I left enough transfers to survive.
Yep.
But when there's an assassination, like he's going to burn some clock just thinking about it, which is moving my advantage towards the win. And I would basically, if he decides to go for an assassination, he would most probably fail and I would win. So that was my plan. I feed, I kill his objective, I kill his feral, I put Surefoot on Iona, put her in the forest. It doesn't matter because Stormraptor is under Una 1. He has Rightbane in his list and all those stuff. But everything I do that makes him needing to allocate resources to do stuff properly.
Order of activation, all that stuff, yeah.
Yeah, might make the assassination more difficult. So even though the concealment didn't matter because he has Eyeless Sight, even though Surefoot doesn't matter because he has Rightbane, he sees through stealth, he sees through forest and stuff like that, I did all those things.
Yeah.
So one of my last activations, I have at this point Stalker on 7 boxes, I want to say.
Mm-hmm.
And my last activation is, I kind of forgot that I have only 2 transfer targets, and I left my feral in threat range of his Warp Wolf. Outside of normal threat range, but in threat range of those Warp Wolves with TK. I was so focused on a single Warp Wolf that I completely forgot that I might... it would be a good idea to measure to both Warp Wolves because one of them has a higher threat range. But my thinking was, if Warp Wolves are really bad at killing something in this game, those are the other Warp Wolves. He had Pureblood and Stalker, both are Mat 6. I killed his feral, so he has no access to Primal at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And he needs to hit 8s, so that's probably bad. And yeah, so I left my feral, completely forgetting, with Warp Armor, forgetting that that's my kinda only transfer target. So clock back to Francesco, and he's like, all right, let's try an assassination. And he measures some things. He has a plan A, which quickly fails. I don't remember what was the plan. So then he's like, plan B. I TK both of my Warp Wolves, I charge your Warp Wolf, and I kill your transfer target. You have only the Stalker with 7 boxes, and then it's Stormraptor.
Yeah, Stormraptor just sustained attacks Iona down, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so I run.
Was he in pulse range?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was in pulse range, and I was kind of hoping that he's going to use pulse, but I will get into that. So the first thing was to TK both of the Warp Wolves, then cast Rightbane with Kruger onto Stormraptor.
Yep.
Then both Warp Wolves charge. First is Pureblood. He boosts his charge attack, he hits an 8, then he does some good damage, then he does the second initial. He's like, all right, let's boost it. He hits, he does some damage, and then he's left with one attack. He cannot boost it. He needs an 8, hard roll an 8, and he gets it. And I'm like, I'm screwed. So yeah, so then the second Warp Wolves go in, and he misses his charge attack, which was the Stalker, so the harder hitting heavy.
Yeah.
So that was good. So then he buys an attack, he does some damage, and he leaves my Warp Wolf on 3 boxes. So that was, kinda good, kinda bad. Then he is like, oh, I forgot to do an assault shot on my Pureblood. Do you mind? And I'm like, yeah, go for it. And he misses, so that's fortunate.
Yeah.
So effectively, I'm left on 10 boxes to transfer and 16 on Iona, so 26 boxes.
Yeah.
So the chance of those 2 Warp Wolves killing my Warp Wolf was 52% according to Odds Machine.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's a Stormraptor with aiming bonus, with Rightbane, with Puppet Master, with Eyeless Sight onto Iona, which is another 51% taking into account those 10 boxes I had to transfer.
Yeah.
So he aims, he shoots at me. He didn't want to use pulse because the pulse is too is weaker than the shot.
True.
By 2 points. So he decided to do the 6 he needs, and then it's sustained attack.
Yep.
Even though I'm defense 18 and in the forest, he needs a 6, so that's cool. He gets it. He rolls 13, I want to say, so quite a good damage. I take it, then he does another roll. He rolls like under average. I want to say it was something like 8 or 9. And he decided not to Puppet Master it. And then it's the last roll, and he needs a 7 to kill me. So he rolls a 6. And then he's like, all right, Puppet Master. And then he rolls a 5. I've never in my life heard so many curses in so little time frame in Italian. So that was something nice to watch. And he took it like a champ. He like took all of the emotions out, and it took him like a minute. And after this minute, he was like, he threw it out away. He smiled and say like, thanks for the game. It was a pleasure. So fantastic. Fantastic. And very close. So I screwed, but I got lucky. And as we said in the previous episode, if you want to win a tournament, skill is required, but luck is necessary.
So in this case, you got it. Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that was the Barcelona Masters. 5 rounds, play-by-play with Iona and Wormwood. And I think you played Wormwood just the once, right?
Yeah. Just into Signar.
Yeah. All right. That sounds about right. Sounds about normal. So, we'll move into then the second section, which is going to be fairly short. Most of this episode was focused on Barcelona, but we do have 2 little bits, mainly on request. So the first bit is regarding the Infernals. So a few people know I have been following and playing and involved in the CID process for the new faction, and asked me for sort of just a few of my thoughts on it. Honestly, my thoughts are pretty negative, so I don't want to just have a whole section of salt. So I'm going to try to keep it short and keep some of the salt out. Not going to manage, I'll tell you that in advance, but I will try. So I thought what I could do is break it down a little bit, sort of week by week. So in week 1, the CID was announced, and there was a lot of hype, and a lot of people were really interested, myself included. It was the first faction since Legion that I'd had any interest in, and they came out the doors, pretty quickly, and gave us all of the new mechanics and new stuff, which was basically summoning. So summoning, marked souls, and Infernal Masters and horrors, and how the new horror damage grids were going to work, and all that sort of stuff. And everyone was very excited about that. It was very interesting, but there were a lot of doubts about their ability to balance it. So in the past, it's been historically, like, recursion has been incredibly strong and very dangerous balance-wise, and they were building a whole faction around the mechanic of recursion. And there were also doubts about their design versus their intent. So they'd stated that they wanted Infernals to be like this really strong faction coming out with this great power level, and then Tithe, which is where at the end of your turn, all of your horrors need to spend 1 essence or they're removed from play. Essence being the new Focus Fury mechanic for the Infernals. So the idea was that this tithe and this sort of increasing cost, and the fact that you had to take a lot of support in order to keep them fueled up, and that this support would die over the course of the game. So their idea was that the faction would start out really strong, summon in some stuff, be cool, and then slowly lose power. Almost all of the players within about 5 minutes realized that was just stupidly wrong. And that what was actually going to happen was you're going to summon a heavy every turn for 7 turns, and no one can out-attrition that. And that's exactly what happened. So in week 1, that was sort of the release. Then at the end of that release, so everyone's sort of discussing that, and then just at the end of the release, right at the end, they said, and so here are the themes. And they said, here's Dark Legacy, the first theme. and you don't pay tithe on turn 1, and your solos have reposition, and we're like, oh, okay, that's great. And they were like, here's the special, second theme, Hearts of Darkness, and this is where it gets really cool and fluffy. So we're going to have traitors, and you can pick between Signar, Kador, Crucible Guard, and take any caster you want and any battle group you want, and then put in some Infernals. And it's like the room just went silent. Like everyone's like, what the fuck are you doing? What an absolute catastrophe. So the whole world just blew up about that because it was the single worst idea I've ever seen after Lord of the Feast. It was just absolute insanity. So they dropped that on day 2. So on day 1, they announced all this, and nobody talked about anything else. Everyone just came up with basically everyone decided that they were really pleased. The Signar players were delighted because they could finally play Haley 3 as they wanted to. And Crucible Guard were like, this is amazing. We get to make a good Crucible Guard pairing. No one was actually talking about Infernals at all. So Infernals, sorry. So they decided to drop that, and they basically said, right, we're going to shelve that. We'll come back to it. Personally, I think they should have just burnt it and never spoken of it again. But that was there. That was there.
It was impossible to test it during the CID because so many interactions, so many things you can take from 3 different factions.
Oh my God! It was just a balanced disaster waiting to happen. Yeah. It was a horrific idea.
For their defense, they said that they are willing to take it down. They just wanted to announce it, see the players' reaction, and they mostly said they mostly want to see the painted armies and converted into Kador Infernal style. So corrupted Kador, corrupted Signar, corrupted Crucible Guard. So that was their intention, but accidentally they would also ruin the game for us. So.
Yeah, I mean what they did was they let fluff and lore try to drive the game, and it was predictably catastrophic. Just a horrific idea. I have never seen anything worse. Right, so they dropped that immediately, and we went back to actually testing the Infernals. The problem is that it looked like they'd sort of been counting on the Hearts of Darkness to sort of prop the faction up a bit, because there were only 3 masters available, only 2 units available. Because of the way the summoning mechanic worked, you would almost never summon a lot of the horrors. There were 6 horrors available. One of them was just an arc node, so 5 sort of combat horrors, if you like. And generally what would happen is you would only summon 2 of those, because one of the heavies was dreadful and still is. The Soul Stalker is basically just a waste of, it's just a waste. So you've got the two heavy chassis, and then you've got the 2 lights. But the thing is, why would you ever summon a light? You can only summon 1 horror per turn, so you would always summon a heavy. So the faction, which was already limited, was becoming even more limited, because there were a bunch of auto-include solos. For anyone who remembers, in week 1, there was the solo Mordecai was possibly the most broken solo I've ever seen, including Feast, because he had auto-hit, choose a model within 10, and then put rebuke, basically, sow discord, it was called, or something like that. And he was just free rebuke, and then he was totally safe. And he could do that every turn, and he gave you +1 to starting roll and tactician on everything within 10. He was absolutely nuts. And so, yeah, there were some serious balance concerns. Let's leave it at that. Right. So that we don't spend all day on it. Go on.
And it's 2 years into testing them.
Yeah, they claim. My God. I really hope for their sake it's not. That's an embarrassment. Anyway, so we move in. So week 1, a bit of a disaster. Infernals are far too strong. The devs realized that no one was doing what they hoped that we would do with the faction. No one was sacrificing anything. We were simply taking 1 million cultists and summoning a heavy every turn and winning on turn 7. So they wanted to change that, obviously. It was bad for the game. So week 2, they tried to change it by meaning that when you summoned a horror, you couldn't, you had to sacrifice combat action. I remember that we spoke about this and you predicted it well in advance that was going to have to happen. It was pretty clear that it was going to have to happen, and it happened. And it was better. So the result was still the same in terms of that design intent problem, which is that now, instead of summoning a heavy missiling it immediately at somebody. You had to summon a heavy, wait a turn, and then missile it at somebody. But still, the value of just summoning a heavy every round was still there, and still a problem. Additionally, there were a couple of other problems that were fixed pretty quickly. There was one list where you just took about 50 cultists, killed them all on turn 1, and then fired 23 dark fires at the enemy caster through the soul mechanic, and that was fixed pretty quickly. And there was a problem with the week 1 summoning whereby you could take Omadamus, and his feat made all your stuff incorporeal and +2 speed. So you basically went forward, summoned a heavy with synergy 3, made it incorporeal, and then just charged their caster with it. And so, like, there was a 22-inch kill box. There was nothing you could. It was like a mega Lord of the Feast. It was ridiculous.
You could have Amok.
Yeah, if you had Amok, you were gold. But if you didn't have him, you were in a world of pain. So that was that. So week 2, things started to get a bit better, but they cut the combat action out. It did start to. They started trying to limit cultists, trying to make them more expensive, trying to limit their FA. What else did they do? During week 2, like between week 2 and week 3, there was a dev talk. So one of the worst ideas that I thought, after Hearts of Darkness, which was the worst idea I've ever heard, the second worst idea I've ever heard was crippling the horrors. So bringing them in with, like, when you summon them, they come in with like 4 boxes or something like that. So they've got like 2 of their circles crippled. And it was a laughably bad idea, but suddenly that one was chosen somehow to go into a dev talk, which went up to like 10 pages of nonsense. That was in order to maintain their combat action. So they were saying, okay, if you're not happy with them losing their combat action, this is a change that we're not happy with, we don't think we're going to do, but this is what it would take in order to keep their combat action. They would have to come in like heavily crippled because we think it's too strong. People spent a lot of time talking about that, trying it, but it was a really terrible idea. It basically involved just, you have to basically do a tax return at the start of every one of your turns. So you like bring in your guys and then you're like, right, I need to heal him for 7, heal him for 9, like move the essence around. Like, it was just like doing a spreadsheet at the start of every one of your turns. It just, like, it was such a horrible feeling. So they never implemented that. Luckily it was shelved, but I was really surprised that they even talked about it. Like, it was the worst. Anyway, never mind. So, then going into week 3, sort of week 2, week 3 were the changes to the Masters. So they made some really nice changes to their spell lists. They moved the anti-range stuff onto one of the Masters, onto Zartaroth. So the -3 range buff was moved to her. They tried to make the spell casting guy a bit more fun and interesting. So they added some stuff where he can cast in the opponent's activation when they kill one of your like cultists or something, you can then cast. And then eventually they gave him Hellmouth, so he had like out of activation Hellmouths, and that can really fuck with people. As far as I know, he's still got that. So that's kind of fun. That's a cool interaction. And then they've recently changed it so that Zartaroth is like the anti-guns. So they were really worried that Infernals were dying too much to guns. In fact, they were just dying too much to everything because their horror stats were so low. And so they suddenly just gave them a huge anti-guns package. So Zartaroth suddenly gained, instead of within 5 inches, her anti-gun -3 range was within 12 inches. So huge buff. Then they gave the Wretch solos base to base with something that could give it stealth. So like stealth everywhere. Then they gave the Lesser Master, instead of having Wind Wall, they gave her deceleration. So suddenly all this anti-gun tech went in, and people have been pretty pleased with that. But it came along with the week 3 changes to summoning. So the week 3 changes to summoning were that in addition to losing your combat action, you also have to kill, now you can't kill cultists, you have to kill one of your decent solos. So you have to kill a marked soul, and they took marked soul off the cultists. So now you have to basically kill one of your named solos or wretches, and they increase the cost of wretches in order to summon every time. And in addition to that, they still come in with 1 essence, and they still forfeit their combat action. And this is roughly where I decided I wasn't going to buy Infernals anymore. So the faction had been really interesting, had been really cool, and was based around summoning. And then they just sort of nerfed and normalized summoning as much as they could, again and again and again. And then this idea that they'd started with, which is that they really wanted people to have to like choose to kill a solo. Like, oh, maybe, you know, after a while when your resources are low, you'll have to choose to kill Mordecai. And everybody said, no, we'll never do that. That's ridiculous. And then they said, oh, well, you know, now we'll make this more expensive and that more expensive. So maybe now you'll have to choose to kill Mordecai. Like, no, we're never going to choose to kill Mordecai. Go away. And then they said, right, well, since we can't actually balance the game in a way that you're going to choose to do that, we're going to force you to do that. So now you have to kill a marked solo. It's not as bad as I'm making it sound, but it's pretty bad. So
I believe the idea was to pack the tools for the faction within those solos.
Yeah.
And then during the game, you need to do some decision making based on what's going on. So let's say one solo is giving you strength into guns, and at some point of the game's guns might not be relevant because you're fighting melee.
Yep.
So you might want to sacrifice this solo and turn it into a horror.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And that's exactly what they wanted. They wanted people to make these sort of cool choices. And what everyone actually does is takes 2 to 3 wretches and takes Kezia Brand, who is a useless solo. They've consistently kept her absolutely useless. And so what you do is you've got those named solos, and those are the ones you turn into horrors. So they just sit at the back and wait to be a horror. And in the meantime, you keep Mordecai and Valin and all the good ones.
Yeah.
So yet again, it hasn't worked how they wanted, and I'm sure they'll try and tweak it to make sure that you have to at some point kill a named solo that's actually good. But generally, you just say, right, which of my flex picks do I not need in this matchup? And then first of all, you kill Kezia because she's useless, then you kill Wretches, and then you kill whichever one you don't need, and then the game's usually over by that point, so it's okay. Cultists you still absolutely need. There's still quite a lot of support bloat in the faction. The units are both fairly disappointing. There are 2 units. One of them are basically Warmongers or Tharn, like they're something like Ravagers a little bit. And the other ones are Grievous Swarms, so some Speed 7 Eyeless Sight, range 10 combined ranged attack guys. They've been consistently disappointing for most people that I've spoken to. And then they've got one cool thing. They've got the Infernal Gate. It's a structure. It's got some recursion. It's got re-rolls. It collects souls, and it can force things to re-roll. That can be friendly or enemy. So that's cool. Forcing re-rolls within 12 is really sweet. It's got a Ghost Shot Eyeless Sight gun, which can, again, collect souls. And in week 3, in the very recent changes, so week 3, update 3, they've been releasing updates almost every 2 days because the faction's just so hard to balance, and they've shaken the faction up so many times now that it's very difficult to know what's going on with them. But the gate's been changed to include something like Slipstream, but without movement, so it can just like... it's a bit like Crane from Mercenaries. Like you can just place something within 2 inches that's close to the gate. When you summon close to the gate, it costs 1 less essence to do so. And the gate... what else? There was something else on the gate. Like there's Road to War's been added to the faction basically on one of the casters or on the gate or something. Road to War's somehow involved. So in other words, there's a lot more movement shenanigans because everybody was saying, look, you've designed this faction that's got pretty terrible threat ranges and no threat extenders. And that's okay, that's been proven to work in the past. Look at Grimkin. But the thing is that Grimkin are armor 21 with an unbelievable ability to brick up and a lot of support. Horrors are weak as hell. They're basically Legion heavies with less boxes, which gives you an idea of how weak they are. And so they just die to a stiff breeze or some bad language, and you can't therefore take an alpha, and you can't out-threat anyone, and you can't activate on the turn that you summon. So there were just all manners of problems. And they are trying to fix them. They are they've made some positive changes. So just recently they added, as I say, a bunch of anti-gun stuff. They added a bunch of +1 armor to all the horrors, trying to make them more survivable. But the problem is that they've just killed the fun out of the faction. They've normalized it. They've brought it back to just being a bit more standard. And the faction is far too limited, and it looks like they're relying on Hearts of Darkness to fix that, and I think that that's going to be an absolute catastrophe, and I really hope that they've changed it so much that they don't even call it Hearts of Darkness anymore. Like that's what I'm hoping. We've only got 3 masters. That's really worrying. And so I have all but dropped the faction, and a lot of people were doing the same thing in week 3. week 3 update 3 has brought a few people back. They're willing to test it. I know Will Cruikshanks is spending a lot of time and effort putting out a lot of reports, doing his best to shape the faction into a good way. And I really hope he's successful. I think he's a great guy and he's doing good work there. But from my point of view, it's all been a bit of catastrophe. They haven't had enough time. They haven't given themselves enough time, and they haven't realised it and extended the time. So they're all just saying, "Oh well, sorry, we've got Adepticon next week, so bad luck." But that it's just going to lead to a catastrophe. And I have very little faith in internal testing. They always say, "Oh yeah, but there will still be more internal testing." Yeah, but you guys thought that this faction wasn't just going to summon a heavy every turn, so I'm not really trusting that, whereas every other player noticed within 5 minutes that was what was going to happen. So it's not inspired a lot of confidence. I'm certainly not about to drop a lot of money on a lot of copies of every heavy and blah, 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 blah. And then, if Hearts of Darkness came out in anything like the form that it was in, you'd then have to go out and buy most of Crucible Guard, Kador, and Signar in order to be most competitive. And that's just an unbelievable price point. That's insane. So that's my update on Infernals. I'm sorry that it's so negative. I wish it wasn't. I was really so certain that I was going to buy them. I was hyped up. I was ready. I was playing them. I put a lot of effort into trying to test them, and then they've kind of ruined it for me. So I really hope that other people have fun with them and that they, maybe get them to a state where people can have a great time. I really hope they don't ruin the balance of the whole game with the Hearts of Darkness nonsense. But that's it.
From the outside perspective, it feels like they wanted to do something very unique, and they announced that it's going to be even more unique than Grimkins are with their Arcanas and stuff. And it feels like the unique thing they wanted to be was summoning, and they made it just a standard recursion mechanic, and now they killed everything that was unique for the faction except the damage grids that are different from War Machine and Hordes, which is not really exciting.
Even those, they started to talk about normalizing them a bit. So they were saying, "Oh, maybe we should make it 1 less attack die, 1 less damage die." What, you mean like all the other ones? Yeah, it's been a bit of a sad ride in that regard. And they've made it from... I mean, the problem was that there were such balance issues, so I understand why they did it. In week 1, it was insane. I could play my very first game of the faction, having never played it before, into a top meta list against a WTC player and stomp. It wasn't close. So they had to do something. But what they've done is kind of take the fun out of it, take the hype out for me.
So I have a question.
Yep.
If they keep the combat action during the summon turn,
Jesus.
If they remove the whole battle group points, so you start with no horrors on the table,
okay,
and they add some solos like Warder that can keep you in scenario game early, so you have enough time to summon things, and make it just a 7th turn powerhouse, but make it so they need more time to get there, need more time to summon all those horrors.
Yeah.
Would it be a good idea or not?
I don't know. And the sad part is we just don't have the time to test it. They haven't given us any time. We always get 2 days and then they release another update. And let's say they put that update in, we just have a day and a half to test it and then they change it all again. But, to answer your question more accurately, I think removing the War Beast points, nobody ever takes more than their War Beast points now anyway. So you're just basically saying, right, you start 28 points down, and is that enough to make up for the enormous power of that recursion-free missile? Send in a heavy, it kills something, you send something to kill it, they summon a new fresh heavy, send it in. I think what you would end up with is just really massive list disparity. So against Grimkin, where they just put in their 6 heavies, there's no way you can summon fast enough to get up to that power level. They're just going to run forwards again. You're never going to be able to win that grind. They're going to kill everything that you summon, and then they'll just kill you. Whereas against some slower lists that can't get to you can't get to you in time. I realize Grimkin is a slow list, but they're a slow, incredibly powerful list. Let's say I played a game against Scorn with a bunch of battle engines, and they got to go first, and they just ran 2 turtles into the middle. And it's okay, so now I summon. They're great, now I kill everything that you summoned. And then I feat. And I'm like, oh, okay, great. So I summon 2 more guys. They're like, great, I kill them. And there's nothing you can do. Like you never get to spin that round. So I think what would happen is that Infernals at the moment are getting sort of rushed down before they can create that value, and that would just be even more so. So it would be like, can you rush them down? Yes, no. Do you win? Yes, no. So I don't think that fixes it. And the week 1 summoning really was broken and really did feel bad for the opponent. So I'm not sure that's a fix. I'm not saying that like I'm being very negative about the devs, but it's not because I think that I have the answer and that they should see it. Like I'm not saying that here's the answer. Here's how you make them good. Here's how you make them fun. I'm just saying that that's their job and they failed. Sadly. So that's the Infernals. More accurately, that's my take on the Infernals. I really hope that other people are having fun with them and that it's not such a negative experience for you. If you are, like, do let us know. If you disagree with me or really agree with me and want to have a chat, by all means, send us a message. We'd love to hear from you. As always, that goes with feedback in general. If there's something you want to hear about, we do tend to respond. We do tend to add it into episodes if we can. So, do get back to us. So that brings us on to the last section, which is the EU tournament calendar, upcoming events, and so on. Do you want to kick us off?
Sure. So 13th of April, we have Italian Masters. The tournament takes place at Convent Hall of Santa Maria del Castello in Genoa. Entry fee is €35, and that includes lunch and very special miniature they prepare for a tournament every year. If you want to get some more information, just search for Italian Masters 2019 in Facebook. You'll find their event page, or contact Vincenzo Rotondo. He organized it last year, and he's probably not organizing it this year, but he's a nice guy and he's always willing to help.
Yeah, he's pretty central to the Italian scene, that, as far as I'm aware of. So, he should be able to at least put you in touch with someone. So the next thing coming up then is in Sweden, in Umeå. We have Fantasia Fanatic, but that's sort of a bigger tournament with multiple systems, but there is a War Machine Hordes section. So that's the 3rd to the 5th of May. In Umeå, Sweden. So you'll basically, from wherever you are, you will probably fly to Stockholm and then get a flight from Stockholm to Umeå. The entrance fee is 300 or 500 Swedish crowns, depending on what you want. Second option comes with more stuff. And you get a mug, for example. I don't know. You'll have to ask. But yeah, that's roughly the price point. The flights are a little bit more expensive because of that additional flight. But in order to counteract this, the locals to the tournament are offering basically free housing to almost anybody that wants to go. They should have a bunch of beds, different people who will help you out. And for this, you want to get in touch with Johan Dierlind. He's one of the main organisers and is also helping sort out this accommodation. And they're really making a big effort to open it up to the international community. I'm going. I think Patrick's going as well. So there'll be a good crowd. Do try and make it, but do keep in mind that it is a full painting requirement. Normally that would mean I'm not going, but sadly Johan invited me and he's just far too nice. So I'm turning up. What's next?
Next one is the Gnomicon convention. And at this convention, we have pre-WTC 5x5 team tournament. It starts at 18th of May, and it's in Orle Gniazdo Hotel in Szczyrk, Poland. Szczyrk is a beautiful small village surrounded by mountains in south of Poland, so you are going to have a good time there. Entry fee is only €60 per whole team, and hotel accommodation is at place. It should be also very cheap. And food there is very good and very cheap, and there should be plenty of alcohol, which is also very good and very cheap. If you want to get some more information about this event, just type in pre-WTC 5v5 Poland on Facebook. It should take you to the event page and all the information you need is there. You can also get in touch with me and I will help you sort out your flights. You can fly into Katowice or Krakow airport, which are very well connected to the rest of the Europe, and it's very easy to get from there to Szczyrk. You can also spend some time in Krakow. I would strongly recommend that because it's a beautiful city with plenty of things to do. And while you're here, we can also play some games together. So I strongly recommend that one. I'm going to be there with my team and I hope to see you all there.
Yep, the only downside of that tournament is that sadly for scheduling reasons it's on the same day as the Welsh Masters. So that's also 18th to 19th of May. It basically needs no introduction. It's in Cardiff. It's one of the biggest tournaments in Europe, if not the world. Martin Jenkins is the main contact for more information. There are some spots left as we are recording this. I don't know if they will still be available on the day that we release this episode, but if you still haven't got a ticket and you're listening to this, strongly recommend you go and try and get one immediately. The prize support is absolutely immense. The attendance is huge. The area is lovely. It's if you can make it, obviously it's well worth it. If you can't, get your ass to Poland. Right. So that's the Welsh Masters. Next up.
25th of May, we have EU Masters in Brno in Czech. This tournament is something I'm really excited for because I've never been at EU Masters, and this year I qualified from different tournaments. I'm pretty sure you qualified too, Simon, right?
Yeah, I qualified through the Swedish.
Yeah, and last year you were second there, so there's only one way to improve your result. Win the thing.
Yeah. Was that last year or the year before? I can't remember. But yeah, I was second at some point because I lost to Martin Majtek. Yes, and for those who don't know, there will be a last chance qualifier on the day one for people that didn't qualify. So even if you didn't qualify, you're very welcome to come to Brno. It's my sort of hometown at the moment, or at least it's where I'm living. And Black Oil, for anyone who's not been there, is an amazing venue, very, very friendly, good sense of humour. Incredibly cheap, and so day one you can come, last chance qualifier, try and get in there, and then the EU Masters is on the second day. The sort of official information page for that hasn't been announced. There's just sort of been a save the date thing issued by the organizer, which is Vladimir Kokolia. But you can expect a barbecue. He's a good chef. He'll put on a barbecue and lots of beer and so on. If you need more information on that one specifically, you can get in touch with Vladimir or with me, and I will put you in touch with the right person. After that, it is the 2nd to the 3rd of June, which is a Czech sort of WTC bootcamp weekend. Oh, sorry, I've got the date wrong. I've got the date wrong already. That is the 1st and the 2nd of June. Sorry about that. It will be in Kutná Hora, which is about an hour from Prague, so very easy to fly to, and we would be able to help you out with directions and so on, and I'm sure people would be able to share some transport. There is a capacity for about 40 players, and as one of the Czech teammates is the hotel manager, the venue will be open 24 hours a day, so unlimited playing for whoever wants to, and there is incredibly friendly pricing on the rooms and drinks and so on. To give you an idea, it will, for a single room, I think it's about €30, and that includes breakfast. Double rooms are as little as 25 a man, and triple rooms, I think they're about the same. So really pretty damn cheap. It's also in a very, very beautiful area, so if you do want to make the mistake of stepping outside, it is quite a nice place to do so. But do note that there is no tournament currently scheduled for that, so it is literally a lot of tables set up, the opportunity to get as many games as you possibly can in before you pass out, and there will be a 5x5 sort of area set up for people, for countries to do, pairing training and 5x5 training as they wish. That's the idea. It's the Czech sort of WTC bootcamp pre-weekend thing. Should be very cool. Anyone who wants information on that can get in touch with, again, either myself. I'm not an organizer for that at all, but I can put you in touch with the organizers, and the captain of the Czech team, Tomasz Shedlon, will almost certainly be happy to speak to you. For those who are not in it, there is a group on Facebook called, I'm just going to pull it up now, it's something like War Machine Events UK, EU. Yeah, let me just find it. It was, War Machine Events EU. You can find a lot of these events and their information written there. Right, I think we're done.
Yeah. Anything
Lovely.
you want to add in the end?
Anything I want to add? Sorry for the negativity on the Infernals. I really wish I had more nice stuff to say. Umbral Guardians are cool. So that's the super solo that can shield guard out of nowhere and then shield guard again. That's a cool idea. I love that mechanic. Also, it makes you finally feel safe from Feast. Like, it was a joy. Absolute joy. So there you go. There's something positive about the Infernals. How about you? Any finishing comments?
No.
Good. Lovely. Right, it's been a long one. We will cut it there. It's been a pleasure. Take care, guys.
Yeah, bye.